The naming ceremony was in full swing when Blessing pushed through the crowd. Women turned, startled by her desperate face. She pointed at the baby in Mama Cynthia's arms and her voice broke the celebration. "That child has my birthmark." The villagers gasped. On the baby's left shoulder was a crescent moon shape, exactly like the one Blessing had carried since birth. Mama Cynthia smiled calmly, her voice gentle as always. "My dear, grief can make us see things that aren't there." But as Blessing stepped closer, the baby's eyes locked onto hers. The infant reached out tiny fingers and began to cry, a sound that pierced through the confusion. Mama Cynthia's smile faltered for just a moment. That single moment changed everything. "If only I had never come back to this village," Blessing thought as she stared at her mother's fresh grave. She had fled years ago after being told her baby was stillborn. The pain had been too much to bear in a place full of memories. But now her mother was gone, and duty had brought her home. As she knelt to pray, her fingers touched something hard in the loose soil. She dug carefully and pulled out a small silver bracelet, tarnished but readable. The name engraved on it made her heart stop, Bolu. That was the name she had chosen for her child. The name she had whispered to her belly every night. The name Mama Cynthia said she never had the chance to use. Years before Blessing's return, Mama Cynthia was the most beloved woman in the village. She had delivered baby safely for 20 years, her hands steady and her prayers powerful. Women trusted her completely. When labor pains came in the middle of the night, it was Mama Cynthia they called. She would arrive with her bag of herbs and clean cloths, speaking words of comfort. After each birth, she would whisper blessings over the newborn and hand the baby to its mother with tears of joy. Everyone said she had been sent by God himself. But late one night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Mama Cynthia stood behind her hut with a small shovel. She dug a hole and buried something wrapped in white cloth. Then she covered it carefully and walked back inside. Blessing's labor lasted through the night and into the morning. The pain was unbearable, and she was alone except for Mama Cynthia's steady presence. "Push, my daughter, push," the midwife urged. Finally, Blessing heard it, a baby's cry, clear and strong. Relief flooded through her exhausted body. But then Mama Cynthia's face changed. She turned away, holding the baby close to her chest. When she faced Blessing again, her eyes were wet with tears. "I'm so sorry, my daughter. The child did not survive. What you heard was just the final breath leaving the body." Blessing screamed, reaching out, but her vision blurred. As darkness took her, she could have sworn she heard another cry, fainter, coming from somewhere outside the room. After Blessing left the village in grief, life continued as it always had. Mama Cynthia delivered more babies, saved more mothers, and her reputation grew even stronger. The village women would gather to praise her. "Without Mama Cynthia, how many of us would have survived childbirth?" they said. The men nodded in agreement, grateful their wives and children were safe. At festivals, Mama Cynthia was given the seat of honor. She smiled humbly and thanked God for using her hands. One afternoon, as she sat outside her home, a little girl ran past, laughing and playing with other children. The child wore a simple bracelet around her tiny wrist. If anyone had looked closely, they would have seen the name engraved on it, Bolu. Years had passed when Blessing finally returned for her mother's burial. She had changed, thinner, quieter, with eyes that had seen too much sorrow. As she walked through the village, people whispered behind her back. "That's the woman who lost her baby," they murmured with pity. Mama Cynthia came to greet her at the compound, arms open wide. "My dear Blessing, I've prayed for your peace every single day." Blessing hugged her, feeling the warmth of the woman who had been there during her darkest hour. But as they pulled apart, Blessing noticed a small girl peeking from behind Mama Cynthia's wrapper. The child had the same dimples Blessing's late mother had. The same gentle curve of the lips. Blessing's breath caught in her throat. That evening, Blessing sat on the veranda as the sun set over the village. From inside Mama Cynthia's house, she heard humming. Her entire body froze. It was the lullaby she used to sing to her unborn child, a tune her own mother had taught her. She had never sung it aloud to anyone except in the privacy of her room. How could Mama Cynthia know it? Blessing stood and walked to the window. Mama Cynthia was rocking the little girl to sleep, humming that exact melody. When Blessing entered, her voice shook. "Where did you learn that song?" Mama Cynthia's hand stopped moving. For a brief second, fear flashed across her face. Then she smiled and said, "Oh, many mothers sing it. It's common, my dear." She quickly changed the subject. The next morning, Blessing went to the market to buy food for the mourners. As she walked past the stalls, she heard women talking in low voices. "Some of these children in this village don't look like their mothers at all," one woman said, shaking her head. Another replied, "True, but who are we to question? Mama Cynthia delivered them, and we trust her completely." Blessing slowed her steps, pretending to examine some tomatoes. An older woman with grey hair leaned in and whispered something that made the others go silent. "If you really want to know the truth about your child, go ask Mama Cynthia who buried your baby." The old woman's eyes met Blessing's across the crowd. Then she turned and walked away. Blessing couldn't sleep that night. At dawn, she grabbed a small shovel and went to the spot behind the village church where Mama Cynthia had told her the baby was buried. She knelt and touched the soil. It felt wrong, too soft, too fresh, even though years had passed. She began to dig with her bare hands, her heart pounding. 10 minutes later, she reached the bottom. The hole was empty. No bones, no cloth, nothing. But as she dug to the side, her fingers touched something, a piece of old fabric stained with blood. She pulled it out and unfolded it carefully. Sewn into the corner was a name. But it wasn't Bolu. It was another name entirely. Blessing sat back, her mind racing. That night, Blessing waited until the village was asleep. She crept into Mama Cynthia's hut through the back door. Her hands shook as she searched the small room. Behind a stack of old clothes, she found a worn leather book. She opened it carefully. Inside were rows of names, dates, weights, and birth times. Mama Cynthia had recorded every baby she had ever delivered. Blessing's finger traced down the pages until she found her own name. Next to it was a small X mark. She flipped through and noticed several other names also had that same mark. What did it mean? She turned the page to find more details about her baby's birth, but the next page was missing. It had been torn out cleanly, leaving only jagged edges behind. The next day, Blessing visited Mama Eo, the village herbalist who lived on the edge of the forest. The old woman's eyes were sharp despite her age. Blessing explained everything: the bracelet, the lullaby, the empty grave, the diary. Mama Eo listened in silence, then sighed deeply. "I saw something once, many years ago," she said slowly. "Late at night, I saw Mama Cynthia hand a newborn baby to a couple I had never seen before. They came from another village. She called the woman sister. They left quickly, and I never saw them again." Blessing's hands trembled. "Why didn't you say anything?" Mama Eo looked away. "Because Mama Cynthia saved my daughter's life once. But now I will warn you, if you dig too deep, you may not live to tell what you find." Blessing found another woman named Adoni who lived 2 villages away. Adoni had also been told her baby died during childbirth, also delivered by Mama Cynthia, also years ago. The 2 women sat together and cried, realizing they were not alone. They made a plan to confront Mama Cynthia together with their evidence. Adoni promised to return in 3 days with documents she had saved. But 3 days passed, then 4, then 5. Blessing went to Adoni's house and found it locked. The neighbor said Adoni had left suddenly in the middle of the night. She said she had to travel for family reasons, they explained. But her clothes were still hanging on the line. Her cooking pot was still on the stove. Blessing knew the truth. Adoni had been silenced. Blessing saw the little girl again near the well. The child was drawing pictures in the sand with a stick, humming softly. Blessing approached slowly, her heart aching. "Hello, little one. What's your name?" The girl looked up and smiled. "I'm called Cynthia, but Mama says I used to be called something else when I was very small." Blessing knelt down, trying to keep her voice steady. "What name was that?" The girl tilted her head, thinking. "Mama says I used to be called Bolu. She said it means blessing in another language." Blessing's vision blurred with tears. The child noticed and reached out to touch her face. "Why do you cry when you see me, Auntie Blessing?" Blessing couldn't speak. Her knees gave way, and she collapsed onto the sand as the girl ran back home. Blessing could not stay silent any longer. She stood in the village square during the evening gathering and pointed at Mama Cynthia. "This woman is a liar. She took my baby and told me she was dead." The villagers turned on Blessing immediately. "How dare you accuse Mama Cynthia?" they shouted. "She has saved all of us. You're just bitter and jealous." Even the elders shook their heads in disappointment. Mama Cynthia stood calmly, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I forgive you, my daughter. Grief has taken your mind." Blessing was pushed out of the square, humiliated and alone once again. That night, as she sat crying in her mother's old house, she heard something slide under the door. It was a folded piece of paper. She opened it and gasped. It was the missing page from the diary. Blessing unfolded the torn page with trembling hands. The handwriting was Mama Cynthia's. "Bolu, born at dawn. Healthy girl. Crescent birthmark on left shoulder. Mother, Blessing. Given to couple from old village. Payment received, 20,000 naira. Mother told child was stillborn." Blessing read it 3 times, her heart pounding. This was proof. Real, undeniable proof. She grabbed the page and stood to run to the elder's compound. But then she heard footsteps outside her door. Slow, deliberate footsteps. A voice called softly through the wooden door. "Blessing, my dear. It's Mama Cynthia. We need to talk. Open the door." Blessing quickly folded the page and hid it inside her wrapper. Her hands shook as the doorknob began to turn. Mama Cynthia entered with her usual gentle smile, carrying a bowl of food. "I thought you might be hungry," she said sweetly. Blessing forced herself to stay calm. "Thank you, Mama." They sat together in uncomfortable silence. Then Mama Cynthia spoke softly. "You know, my dear, some things are better left buried. Digging up the past only brings pain." Blessing pulled out her phone, trying to record the conversation secretly. But the battery icon flashed red and the screen went black. Mama Cynthia noticed and her smile faded. Her voice dropped to a whisper, cold and sharp. "I warned you gently, Blessing. But you refused to listen. Don't dig your own grave twice." She stood and walked to the door, pausing to look back. "Good night, my dear." Blessing ran back to Mama Ao's house the next morning. The old herbalist was waiting, as if she knew Blessing would come. "Sit down, child. There's more you need to know." Mama Ao poured her some water and began. Mama Cynthia was once married to a man who loved her deeply. But she could never have children. Her womb was empty. Her husband left her, and the village mocked her. She became bitter. Blessing listened, her heart heavy. One day, she helped deliver a baby for a woman who didn't want it. And that's when the idea came to her. She began to reassign babies, giving them to women she thought deserved them more. Mama Eo reached into a wooden box and pulled out an old photograph. It showed Mama Cynthia holding a baby wrapped in white cloth. Written on the back was one word, Bolu. Blessing ran to Mama Cynthia's house, desperate to find the child. But when she arrived, the compound was empty. The door was locked. Neighbor said, "Oh, Mama Cynthia took the girl and left this morning." She said they were visiting family in another village. Blessing's heart sank. She searched everywhere, the church, the market, the school, but no one had seen them. That evening, as she returned to her mother's house in despair, she found something on her doorstep. It was the small silver bracelet with Bolu engraved on it. It had been cleaned and polished until it shined. There was no note, no explanation. Just the bracelet, placed carefully where she would find it. A message. A warning. Or perhaps a confession. Blessing picked it up and wept. Blessing took the torn diary page to the village council. The elders sat in a circle as she presented her evidence. "This is proof that Mama Cynthia has been lying to us all." The chief elder examined the page carefully, frowning. But before he could speak, Mama Cynthia arrived, supported by two women. She looked frail and heartbroken. "My elders, this woman is trying to destroy me because I couldn't save her baby. I have the death certificate. I buried that child myself." She pulled out an official-looking paper. The council hesitated, torn between the evidence and their trust in Mama Cynthia. Just as they were about to dismiss Blessing's claim, the door burst open. Mama Eo stumbled in, breathing hard, holding a mud-stained bundle. "Wait," she gasped. "Before you decide, open this." Mama Eo placed the bundle on the ground. "I dug this up from behind Mama Cynthia's hut. It's been buried there for years." The chief elder unwrapped it slowly. Inside were dozens of tiny bracelets, name tags written on scraps of cloth, and birth records that didn't match the official books. Each bracelet had a different name. Each tag told the story of a stillborn baby. The crowd murmured in shock and horror. Women began to recognize names, babies they had mourned, children they thought were lost. Mama Cynthia's face went pale. She clutched her chest and collapsed dramatically onto the ground. "My heart," she gasped. "Someone help me." In the confusion, as people rushed to assist her, Mama Cynthia crawled toward the door and slipped out into the fading evening light. Blessing and several villagers grabbed torches and followed Mama Cynthia's trail into the forest. They moved quickly through the darkness, calling her name. After nearly an hour of searching, they found a small hut hidden deep in the trees, covered with vines. The door was slightly open. Inside, they found shelves lined with children's clothes, old photographs, and a second record book filled with names and locations. "She's been doing this for decades," someone whispered. Then they heard a soft whimpering sound coming from behind a curtain in the corner. Blessing's heart raced. She pulled the curtain back slowly, her torch shaking in her hand. Behind it was a small figure, huddled and frightened. A child. The little girl with her mother's dimples. Bolu. Bolu looked up at Blessing with wide, frightened eyes. "Please don't hurt me," she whispered. Blessing dropped to her knees and pulled the child into her arms, sobbing. "I would never hurt you. Never." The girl clung to her instinctively, as if her body remembered something her mind could not. Footsteps echoed outside the hut. Mama Cynthia appeared in the doorway, holding a lantern. Her face was no longer gentle. It was hard, desperate, filled with years of secrets. "You were never meant to find her," she said quietly. "I gave her a better life than you ever could." The villagers surrounded the hut, blocking her escape. Mama Cynthia looked around at the angry faces and realized it was over. Her knees buckled, and she sank to the ground. Mama Cynthia sat on the ground, surrounded by villagers holding torches. Her voice was broken, trembling. I never meant to hurt anyone. I only wanted to help. She looked at Blessing with tears streaming down her face. Your baby would have grown up in poverty. The couple I gave her to had money, love, everything. I thought I was doing God's work. The villagers murmured angrily, but Mama Cynthia continued. I couldn't have children of my own. So I built families for others. I matched babies with mothers who deserved them. I saved lives. She fell forward, pressing her face to the dirt. I only wanted to build what I could never have. The chief elder stepped forward. You stole children and broke mothers' hearts. That is not God's work. The villagers demanded justice. Blessing stood at the center of the crowd, holding Bolu close. The elders asked her what she wanted. We will punish Mama Cynthia according to your wishes. What do you choose? Blessing looked down at her daughter, then at Mama Cynthia weeping on the ground. Every part of her wanted revenge. But she thought of her own mother, who had always taught her that bitterness only breeds more pain. I choose the truth, Blessing said finally. I want every family to know what happened to their children. I want records made public. I want justice, not revenge. The elders nodded. Mama Cynthia was taken away by the village security, still weeping, still repeating, I thought I was helping. Every mother thinks she's doing what's best. Bolu looked up and whispered, Are you my real mother? Blessing kissed her forehead. Yes, my love. I am. Blessing stood at dawn, holding Bolu's small hand as the sun rose over the village. The child leaned against her, still uncertain but beginning to trust. Blessing spoke softly, as much to herself as to her daughter. If only I had trusted my heart sooner, you would never have been taken from me. Around them, the village was beginning to change. Women now attended every birth together, no longer leaving mothers alone with one person. Trust had been broken, but truth had set them free. Other families were being reunited, other secrets uncovered. Blessing looked at Bolu and smiled through her tears. The road ahead would not be easy, but they would walk it together. The story spread beyond the village, a warning to all, even the gentlest hands can hide the deepest lies, but truth always cries louder than silence. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more stories of DECITL, survival, and truth.